Why am I more prone to injury from lifting now that I'm in my 40s than I was in my 20s and 30s? Hashtag back pain, hashtag knee pain. We'll be diving into this and so much more on today's Q&A episode. All right, you guys, we're hitting it off strong here. Obviously, none of us are in our 40s yet, but I think we can all tell a story or two about just recovery in our 30s, mid 30s almost. Yeah, that's kind of gross to say.
Someone's
For
older than
who?
the other.
I'm not
I'm not either.
mid-30s yet.
Isn't 33 like mid 30s? No,
I would consider 35
the
the
start of
middle
mid
of the
30s.
30s and the 40s, personally.
I feel like
You're the oldest,
30
so it probably feels a little weird for you.
Yeah,
literally
you're the oldest
1
one
month.
here, Alessandra.
By 1 month, Josh. 1 month.
Cougars be cougars.
This is a great question, though, and I think it's something probably many people relate to because as we get older, I think for a lot of people, we just tend to blame all of our problems on age itself when there are probably a lot of other things factoring in. But if I think back to like how I used to train for powerlifting, and there's another question about powerlifting we'll get into, but like if I were to take one of those 2.5 hour powerlifting sessions that I did in my 20s and did it today, I would probably like die. Maybe if I could probably work back up to that, but I just trained so much differently than I used to in my 20s. And even back then, like, yeah, I was tracking macros and like doing all the things, but it was less of an emphasis on all of these biofeedback factors. And like, obviously I didn't have kids yet. And you just feel a little more, I don't know what the word is, I guess just energized. But I think that injury can be common as you get older. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that there's a big difference in recoverability compared to when you're in your 20s and 30s. Where like I'm over here in my 30s and I'm like, my recovery sucks right now. But also A, stressful season of life. And B, if you listen to the last podcast, I talked about kind of food being a struggle for me in this season. So that has definitely contributed to my own poor recovery. But I'm self-aware and I'm working on it. But anyway, this question about being more injury prone. So I do think, like Alessandra said, there's this, our mind automatically goes to age. It is my age. And so therefore I am aging and my recovery is not as great and my back pain is more and my knee pain is more and so on. And I would urge you, instead of saying it's inherently your age, to think about what in your life is different at this age, because it's not necessarily inherently your age. It's more so, what did life look like in your 20s versus what does life look like in your 40s? I didn't have kids in my well, I guess technically at like 28 or 29, I had my first kid, but I wouldn't consider my 20s when I was like in the thick of motherhood. That has been in my 30s for me. And I would argue that my 20s, I had way better recoverability than I do now in my 30s. Is it because I'm 32 now? Probably not. It's probably more so because there's less of me to go around, in the sense that I'm taking care of so many other things. My stressors look a lot different now. My businesses look a lot different now. My family looks a lot different now. My schedule looks a lot different now. So I would more so urge you to think about what's different in your lifestyle, whether it's your job, your sleep routines, your schedule, if you have kids, all of that, versus what that looked like in maybe your 20s or your 30s. To sort of reflect on what could potentially be contributing to that pain or those aches and soreness and such.
Yeah, and just to add to that, sorry, Josh, one thing I want to throw in there really quick.
This will be my last episode on the Fitness League podcast after we close the last
Nothing you say
episode.
matters, Josh.
Starting in the same way.
No, but I just wanted to say, like, thinking back to those like my early 20s and how I would lift back then, yeah, it was more intense, but at the same time I had 2.5 hours to spend in the gym. I was doing a lot of extra mobility work. We were like, there that was a period of life where I was tracking macros every single day and was really, really on point with nutrition every single day. And that's not to say that I'm not now, but there is a difference when you're tracking every day, consistently hitting your macros versus obviously I'm not tracking every day right now, but I'm eating more intuitively and mindfully. And yeah, I feel good, but just different seasons of life. So even if like you look back and you're like, well, not too much is different. Like I'm doing a lot of the same things I was. Maybe you're just moving slightly less. You're taking, less steps throughout the day. You have less time in the gym. You have more stress in your life. You're working a different job. Whatever it is, all of these things matter. And this is why we talk so much about phases of life and seasons of life and how things can impact your training and nutrition, even if it seems like not much should be impacted.
I'm going to assume, or I'm going to go off the belief that the people who are relating to this question are really comparing, let's say, like high school age, college age to the way things are responding now as far as how am I recovering? I didn't used to get injured all the time, all these nagging little things. And the boring answer is look at your lifestyle. It's not that you eclipsed 30. It's not that you eclipsed 40, that you eclipsed 50, however old you are. What did your lifestyle look like then and what does it look like now? So let's say you're in college. You're walking around campus between class. You're at a desk, yes, but you're probably not sitting in an office for 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 hours. You're eating better. You're prioritizing, those different aspects. You're probably getting more consistent training in. So sleep, we could argue college, maybe you're sleeping well, maybe you're not, but those are the things as we age, it's not the number. Those are the things that typically deteriorate and then lead to worse recovery and lead to less muscle mass and lead to weight gain, fat gain. You're not sleeping well. You're not managing stress well. You are sitting for a huge majority of the day, unless you're working in a trade, which most people are not. It's white collar for the most part. You're working at home, you're working in an office, you're not moving nearly as often, and you're just sitting in that position. So you're getting tighter. On top of not moving, your body is getting tighter. That is my biggest thing. Like yes, we work from home. We have the ability to do all these things and we're in the health and fitness industry. So we're aware, we do our best, but it still calls for a lot of sitting. We're on our computers for the vast majority. These are online businesses. So then I'll go into the gym and if I'm hitting hack squats or I'm doing regular squats and I'm just very tight around my calves and my ankles and my hips and I feel not necessarily injury, but I'm aware of how tight I am and how much pressure I have on those areas. So just kind of mitigating that as much as you can with the lifestyle protocols as far as breaking it up. Get up once an hour, do a couple laps around the house, take a walk at lunchtime or in the morning or in the evening or all the above. Prioritize sleep as much as you possibly can. From our side, I'll say this is what we have been very blessed with. Our kids are wonderful. They're happy. They're healthy. Those are the most important things, but they fucking sleep like champions. And that's been a game changer since they were a few months old. If we can get 7 hours consistently, like we can hit 7 to 8 hours. Granted, we go to bed, we're in bed at 8:30, we read and we go to sleep. So, call us grandma and grandpa, but that's what's important to us. We're getting the hours. So that's a huge part of why we're able to continue to keep up with the things we can keep up with. But for a lot of people, it starts there. It starts those simple things that it sounds like we're beating a dead horse. And I know it does not sound sexy. It does not sound fun, but you need to sleep. You need to move your body. You need to drink plenty of water.
You need to eat enough.
Eat enough food and quality nutrient-dense options. Exactly. You start there, you're going to recover better. You're going to recover better from the workouts. You're going to notice less injuries around those workouts. Your mobility is going to improve if you're consistently weight training. So again, it always goes back to the basics. We had a shirt like 5 years ago. We made the basics never stop working. And it's boring, but it's true.
Yep. We're probably overdue for a sleep episode. So maybe we'll add that to the list soon. But moving on to the next question, I think we covered that one really well. We'll tackle the fun one. What's for Christmas dinner?
Whatever my mother-in-law is making.
Oh, are you going to Pennsylvania?
We'll go to Brant's parents for Christmas, yeah.
Nice.
We tried to have it at our house. They weren't into the Jew hosting Christmas, I guess. So
it's Christmaka.
we'll
most magical holiday.
Brant's family for Christmas and Hanukkah with my family.
We're hosting Christmas Eve, and we're doing a board party. So I told everyone to...
Oh, I know what this is. Yeah.
Basically, it's like a charcuterie board,
Super
but different themes.
It's not
so
boring.
like,
it's so
I
cute.
thought, no, I was kidding. It's a board party. Everyone's boring.
Oh.
It's boring. Okay.
But no, everybody is in charge of bringing their own big charcuterie board. And basically, like, you have the basic, like meat and cheese we'll do. And then we're going to do a dessert board. Kai is really excited to like make a fun dessert board. And then like you could do, like, I was looking at just the different Pinterest ideas for it. You could do like make your own burger board or taco board, or there's just, whatever, however you want to take
I
it,
feel
be
like
as
your
creative.
dad. I feel like your dad is gonna love this.
He's not coming. It's just Josh's side on Christmas Eve.
Ah,
I know.
okay, never mind. I
He
feel
would
like
have
your dad
crushed.
would be all over that.
My dad's all over anything
There would be
that
no-
comes to food.
There would be no lines. Like, he was supposed to bring a board. He would bring 40 different things and like
He would-
8
yeah.
pounds of food, like literally 8 pounds of food.
I could see him going hard on the food boards.
Yeah, so we're doing that Christmas Eve, and then we'll go to my parents the next day, and they'll probably do like the typical lasagna. We do salad at every family gathering. Like, I will say, like, our family does a pretty good job at keeping things like healthy and having good options for the most part. Like, yeah, we indulge in the desserts. Like, desserts, there's always 50 desserts, but other than that, like, the main meal is usually like a high protein. There's vegetables, there's color. So yeah, I think we are kind of blessed in that department too, because I know that's not always the case. But if you are in a situation where you don't have that, one of my best tips that I think I gave in the previous episode was to just bring something that you know you're gonna love.
Yeah.
Bring a high protein dish. Bring a salad. You can always be in charge of what you bring. So that's how I would go about not having those options.
I forgot we have fresh monkey over here now.
That
What?
was so random.
Joelle took a sip, and I'm like, we should go grab a fresh monkey after this podcast. It's like
Fresh Monkey.
smoothies.
Fresh
It's
Monkey?
a,
Like protein
it's a
protein
smoothie
smoothies.
place. We just got it in town.
We got a Jersey
Context.
Mike's and we got a fresh monkey.
Context would be helpful there.
This is how Josh
A
talks.
monkey? I'm like, am I hearing him correctly?
We did have a monkey, like an exotic monkey was found in a local shed.
Oh my gosh,
Like,
this was insane.
The neighbors, like, it was in the neighbor's shed. So the monkey
Some
got
guy-
out, opens the
no.
shed, and there's a monkey in there.
Some guy went out to a shed like to mow the lawn or something. He opened it up and there's this monkey chilling on the top, like an
fresh
exotic monkey.
Not a cute monkey, like a
was
freaky
scary.
looking monkey. Imagine seeing that shit when you open the door.
I
Yeah,
scream.
that was Connecticut for you. All right, moving
Thank you
on.
for that ADD thought, Josh. Moving on. Josh wants a smoothie after this.
All right, next question. I continue to purchase sets of dumbbells as I'm able to lift heavier. Love that. I am considering investing in adjustable dumbbells instead. Can you talk about the pros and cons? We
Do you guys
two
have adjustable
sets.
dumbbells too?
We
those.
have two different sets. Which ones do you have?
We have from like 5 pounds to 55 pounds, I want to say is the max.
Are they like Power Blocks? Do you know the brand?
They're Bowflex. I want to
Bowflex.
say.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have Power Block, right?
Yep, it's just the thing that slides in and out up to 50,
Yeah.
and then we've got the Iron Master UKs up to 110.
So you have like an extension pack to make them heavier, or it's a
Yes.
separate set.
No, it's the Iron Master UK is entirely different. So one is
okay.
like the stackables, you slide them in, slide them out, and then one is actually like stackable plates. But rather than like remember the ones you used to just twist on to tighten
Yeah.
the weights back on, and you stab yourself in the thighs. These are actually a flat cap. So you put it in, you twist it, it locks in, and then it's flat on the bottom.
Those are really nice.
They are. And you can go heavy with those. You had someone reach out to you asking if we wanted 90-pound adjustables, which would be convenient. What happened to that?
Yeah, I would say for me, I mean, the pros are it's very convenient to have one set of dumbbells and multiple different weights to use instead of just buying a new set every time you need them. What I will say about the main con, well, two main cons. One, obviously, you're limited up to how far adjustability it has and how much weight it can have. But the other con that I find is they're just sort of cumbersome. Like it's not like using a regular dumbbell because it's so much longer and bulkier than a traditional dumbbell. And so I find that if I am training at home with them, there are certain exercises I won't do, like a bicep hammer curl. Like I would be hitting myself in the face with it because it's so big and blocky and like not comfortable for certain exercises. So I would just keep that in mind. You might have like some minor exercise limitations just because it feels awkward or clunky to use it for certain exercises. But I would say overall the pros probably outweigh the cons.
So these ones that we have both sets, they're not like that. They're not super
Yeah.
long. They are convenient like a typical dumbbell. The only inconvenient part is not so much for the power. It's not. Is it a power block? What did
Yeah,
we say?
it is.
Not so
Power
much for the
block.
power block because it's slide in, slide out. But the Iron Master UKs, as convenient as those are, like it's going to take you 30 seconds to set them up. And if you have like 100 pounds on there and you're flipping them and then you're tired in between your set, like I love dropping them, picking up the next set. But that said, like it's also saving us a ton of space and you're not
Yeah.
paying like $2 a pound for a dumbbell.
I was
Yeah,
going to say for like a superset, it's annoying too. If you're like, oh, I want to
Yes.
superset these. And now you're like, put them down, readjust the weight, take them back out, put them down, readjust the weight, take them back up for the next set. Yeah, that part gets a little annoying.
Yeah.
You got to be strategic and do like a
luckily we
cable
have-
superset.
Luckily, we have two because Josh usually keeps the heavy weights on the Iron Master one. So, like, I'll use those for if I'm doing like heavy dumbbell hip thrusts or something, but I'm not doing arms with 100-pound dumbbells. So, I'll use the power blocks, and yeah, they're great. I really don't have too many complaints. They save space. So, if you are limited and you're somebody who's working out in your living room, like they're a great option.
Yeah.
And there's so many different kinds now. Like, I remember when COVID hit, it was like people were scrambling trying to find them, and there was really only a couple brands at the time, but like
They were sold out all of COVID.
Yeah.
you couldn't get them anywhere. But there's so many different options now. But yeah, I think overall we can all say we love them and highly recommend them, especially if you are somebody who is working out from home and needs those heavier weights.
I think we have a whole episode on home gyms, but like that's really the strategy with the home gym build out is what is going to give you the most bang for your buck.
Yep.
Not only like pricing, but like space. So we've got the corner set up for the cables for ours. We've got the power rack next to that. And then like the one indulgence I would say we have that wasn't necessary and takes up a ton of space was the hack squat leg press. But that was the biggest thing we missed from the gym. So just be strategic, figure out how much space you have, what your dream equipment is. And quick plug, we're not affiliated, but Titan Fitness is actually what we use for most of our equipment. Pretty cheap.
Just,
very
understand
sturdy.
building it is annoying. to
Not
take
not
you-
all of it. The cable machine sucked. The cap machine was fine. The hack squat wasn't a big deal. Yeah, outside of cables, it's not that bad. It's not very expensive, and they are very well built. Like they're sturdy as hell.
Coach John has a cool set of fancy. He has a hip thrust machine in his gym. I
that'd
saw. I would love that eventually, but there's
We
so
talked
much,
about
again.
maybe adding to our basement, like if we were gonna add a machine, we talked about maybe adding one of the like dual leg extension leg curl where you can like change the seating so that it could be either one, because he was noticing, like, I mainly work out at the gym, but Brant works out exclusively at home, and he was noticing that because we have the dumbbells, the barbell, the bench, and our squat rack has like a cable system, but it's not super great. Like it gets
like a
sticky
pulley
and
system?
there's like a pulley system, but it's like not super. It's just not super like efficient. We definitely like bargain hunted cheaply on Amazon for this squat rack, and like it shows. It's not bad, but like it gets the job done, but it's definitely not like a rogue squat rack and system. Why was I bringing this up?
The leg curl.
Oh,
extension.
thank you. So we were talking recently about like his workout routine and what he's doing at home, and we were talking about how the biggest limitation with his home stuff is being able to do like isolation work for lower body, because you can easily like find a dumbbell exercise to isolate a bicep or isolate a tricep. You don't need a machine for that. But the leg extension and the leg curl, just being able to work out your legs in an isolated capacity without having to do like a squat, a lunge. Like it's very hard to isolate lower body without a machine if you're not trying to do another compound exercise. So like he hurt his back and he's like, I don't want to squat, I don't want to lunge, but I need to do something for my legs. So anyway, maybe we'll add that in the future. But
Just swap out the bench you have for one that actually has the slide in, like for
Yeah,
leg extensions and leg curls. We use
Our
that for
Iron
bench.
Master, the Iron Master bench it just clips into the end, and it has leg extension and leg curl.
like
yeah,
it's an attachment for your bench.
yeah, it's
Oh,
super
that's-
convenient.
That's interesting. We have two benches, so I wonder if it would fit on either one of our two benches.
No, it has
It's
to
a
be
it's built for
yeah.
it to slide
Oh.
in and support it the right way.
Okay. Still, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking into that, writing that down.
All right,
on
next
my red light ticket.
question.
Sitting on my
Where
desk
to
reminding me to
start?
put it.
Where to start after miscarriage, the postpartum program, or go back to the program I did before the pregnancy? First of all, so sorry again for your loss. I know this is just like the hardest thing you will ever go through, and it's just a lot of unknown, and you don't really know what you should do as far as training, and I mean as far as anything. You're just in this like weird limbo as somebody who's been there. Depending on where you are, and I know this person is she was a little bit earlier in the pregnancy when she experienced the miscarriage. So I would say if you're within that first trimester, then you can take as much time as you need off and then go back to how you were training prior. If it was later in the pregnancy, I might recommend something different, but it kind of is an individual situation. But I would say for most people, you can take a short break if that's something you want to do, or if it makes you feel better to get back to your normal routine, which for me, that's what I did. I kind of hopped right back into things. Just mentally, that's what I knew was going to make me feel my best, and you can just go right back to your old programming. You shouldn't really have any limitations, because we know in that first trimester, if you were to have a full pregnancy, we're not changing that much in that time anyway. So your body is capable and able to do whatever it was doing before. Just pay attention to obviously red flags, excessive bleeding, signs and symptoms like that. But that would be my advice. Okay, let's go to, all right, this is a good one. I know you all say lifting is lifting and cardio is cardio, but when I do these barbell lunges for sets of 12, it sure feels like cardio. Can you explain again why this is not technically cardio, even though I'm breathing heavy, doing it for a steady amount of time, and by the time the minute is up, I'm still breathing hard? So she's lifting at the correct RPE of 8 according to her legs, and she just feels like she can't catch her breath.
So a few things here. One, I'm curious as to how much intentional cardio this person is doing, because my guess is they wouldn't feel as much like cardio if we were doing more cardio. Because it sounds like your legs are not the limiting factor. It sounds like your like cardiovascular fitness becomes the limiting factor, where like, oh my gosh, I have to stop these reps, not because my legs are too tired, but because I have to catch my breath. That's more of a cardio deficit, if I would call it that. But essentially cardio is not lifting weights faster, lifting weights heavier, getting your heart rate up while lifting. Those things sure have positive benefits. But cardiovascular exercise technically is something that is rhythmic, continuous, and performed with large muscle groups of the body. So you have the large muscle groups of the body part down, you have the getting your heart rate up part down with the lunges, but it's not necessarily rhythmic and continuous. So I certainly understand the argument for like, well, can I just like lift weights faster or lift heavier and that will count as my cardio? I remember, Alessandra, you probably joked about this too in your powerlifting days. Anything that was over like 6 reps in powerlifting was like, oh my God, I have cardio squats today. I have to do 10 reps. And it felt like so much at that time.
Yep.
And so I definitely understand wanting to be able to sort of combine the two and get the benefits of both. But there are different benefits. Yes, there is some crossover, but both strength training and cardiovascular exercise should separately ideally be a part of your routine. So I would say that your heart rate getting really high is not necessarily a reflection of you doing cardio during your lunges. It's more a reflection of maybe needing more cardio so that your heart rate and your windedness is not getting as high during your strength training.
So where would you draw that line? Let's say cardio squats is obviously on one side where that is not cardio, but on the other side, maybe there's something like a power clean EMOMs, 10 reps, EMOM, say 8 sets. Would you consider that a HIIT type of cardio, or where would you guys draw the line in the sand and say this now becomes?
That's a good question.
I'm good at good questions.
I would say it's tough because I think that, you know, when we think about, let's say, like I think of like a CrossFit workout where people are like, well, that counts as my cardio. And it's like, okay, I can kind of see that in the sense of like it is continuous, you are going nonstop, there's a strength training component, but I don't think that that is the same personally and professionally. I don't believe that that's the same as a continuous run,
Yeah.
a continuous Stairmaster session, a continuous Peloton ride, because every time you're letting your heart rate come back down to rest and recover, that automatically makes it less continuous. Now, could you argue that that's like a HIIT session? Yes. Well, there's always going to be a difference between steady state cardio and like high intensity interval training. Those are both cardio, but I would say that there's a spectrum here. And so maybe that's a better way to think about it is there's this spectrum of on one end of the spectrum, you have, a 10-mile run, which is obviously going to be very continuous cardio. And on the other end of the spectrum, maybe you have something like Tabata, which is like 10 seconds on, your 20 seconds off or whatever. So I think that is a spectrum to be considered. And so maybe, the CrossFit workout is near that HIIT end of the spectrum versus on the continuous cardio end of the spectrum. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. So if I'm a client and I am doing, let's say I'm doing 2 runs a week, and then I'm doing something like the CrossFit or the EMOMs or some Tabata as like my HIIT, with that blend involved, are you comfortable with all of that being counted in my cardio bucket?
Yeah. I was going to say, I think your intention behind it matters. So like you have to know going into that workout, is this a cardio session for me? And am I focused on keeping my heart rate up the whole time and, focusing on improving my cardio as the priority? Or am I going into this Metcon trying to lift as heavy as possible and PR and like more so on the strength side? Like for me, I would kind of distinguish them that way. Like what is the intention behind the workout and declaring that first. But in your example, Josh, like if that was a client coming to me, I would count that as cardio versus counting that as lifting.
Do we have our first Alessandra Joel debate? She's making faces over there. Coming back to you.
You're saying the HIIT workout, or was it a CrossFit? What was the other one that wasn't continuous cardio?
So you've got a couple days of whatever, traditional cardio, and then for your third, it's going to be some type of CrossFit, or like going back to that example, power clean EMOM. Say you're doing 10 reps every minute on the minute for whatever, 8 rounds or so.
I still consider that a strength training workout.
You wouldn't put that.
See,
you wouldn't. You wouldn't let that accumulate towards your weekly total.
Probably not.
I don't think
You're
either of
doing
us is
strength
wrong.
work fast. You're doing strength work fast. You're doing strength work for time. That's not the same as cardio. In my humble opinion.
Yeah, I would count it
Our
as cardio.
first Alessandra Joel disagreement. Mark down the
Bum,
date.
bum,
We can't be co-owners of a business anymore.
It was bound to happen.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
look,
I would
guys,
still count it as cardio.
we can all still get
personally.
along and agree to disagree. We don't
Yeah,
all hate
see?
each other because we disagree. Go figure.
We're leading by example.
I'm gonna put a big rainbow on the overcast on this.
We'll have to hold up the fists again. Didn't we do that for one of the things? Hold up the fists.
Didn't look angry at all. That was a total fail on
We're all like laughing. holding
battle
our
picture.
hands up in the air.
All right. Pros and cons of powerlifting. I've been training for years, bodybuilding style, and have been really enjoying the lower reps and was considering running a powerlifting program. So, yeah. Pros, it's super fun to get strong. Like it is the coolest. And I think it's something everyone should try. Obviously just to change it up, but also it really teaches you how to train at the correct RPE, in my personal opinion. Like you really like to know how to lift at the right RPE. You have to know what it feels like to truly go to failure and max out. And you're going to do that with powerlifting. So that's really when I started to lift at the optimal intensity and started to see a ton of progress strength wise and muscle mass wise, because I was pushing myself way more than I was when I was just doing bodybuilding prior to that. So I would say that's like the biggest pro. Obviously, it's a different style of training. It's not for everyone. There's a lot longer rest times between sets. It's obviously lower reps. You may initially feel like you're not doing enough. It's less volume compared to bodybuilding. So it's sort of like a mindset switch because it feels like you're doing less when in reality the intensity is just so much higher. And that's not to say you can't have higher volume sessions too. Like there's so many different ways to set up a powerlifting program. I used to do it like daily undulating periodization. So like I would squat, bench, and deadlift 3 times per week each. And each of those days was different sets, reps, intensity. So there's a lot of ways to go about it, but ultimately it's super fun. I personally love it. I'll probably run a powerlifting cycle again at some point postpartum. But yeah, it can't hurt to try. I think it's something everybody should give a try.
It's less fun when you can't squat next to your wife anymore.
Out of pure embarrassment.
Believe it or not, I had a what were they calling it? Power building when like everyone was starting to like hybrid their powerlifting and bodybuilding. I think I was even following like a Lane Norton power building program like back in the
Probably.
day. I got strong. Like it was the strongest I have ever been, PRing on bench and deadlifts and squats. And there is like a very simplified there's something really nice about the simplified approach to lifting. Like you go in, you squat, dead, bench, and you're like, all right, cool. Like I'm done unless I'm going to do a little bit of accessory work. You're like, I did my workout. I did my 3 sets of 5 and like I'm done. So there is that like very nice simplified part of it. But I would say just, different seasons, different styles of training. You know, all of us in here have probably ranged through different phases of the more like functional training and HIIT stuff and bodybuilding stuff and hypertrophy stuff and strength stuff and powerlifting stuff. We have probably experienced a lot of different phases of that. And I think it's fun to get to play around with a few different phases of fitness.
There's also a lot more overlap than I think most people realize. So the biggest change is going to be total volume and optimizing like rest for either strength or for building muscle. Like you can build muscle with 4 reps. You're going to have more volume. You're going to not rest for 6 minutes. You're going to rest for a couple minutes and you're going to get back into it. It really comes down to volume and RPE. So one of the best things you can pull over from powerlifting into bodybuilding, like Alessandra was talking about, is understanding what your percentages actually are. What is a 9? What does an 8 actually feel like? Because most people, I'll go as far as to say 75% plus, have no idea what an actual 8 or a 9 is, especially if you're training without a spotter. You're not going to a 9. I'll tell you right now, you're not. Yeah. You could get 2-3 more reps if your world depended on it. Good form, you can get 2 or 3 more reps than you think you could. So understanding what that actually feels like is very beneficial. It's going to help you a ton when you go back to focusing on prioritizing muscle mass. But you can do both. You can lift 4, 5, 6 reps consistently, like block over block, and put on plenty of muscle. You just have to learn how much volume your body specifically handles best, what you recover best from, and what that RPE actually feels like.
Yeah, the other biggest difference, I just wanted to throw in there, like the biggest difference between a bodybuilding and powerlifting, you said like volume and sets and reps.
Yep.
It's the exercise selection. So if you don't like back squats, bench press, or deadlifts, powerlifting probably isn't for you. Those are the 3 lifts that you're getting stronger at. So yes, it is the total volume and the, lower reps, but it's those specific movements. That's what you would train to get better at. So I just wanted to clarify.
But you could also do that in a bodybuilding routine. You could use those 3.
I was also just going to add that there's a lot of, like Josh said, there's a lot of overlap between goals. Like I remember when we first added Muscle Mommy to the app, which is my like bodybuilding style hypertrophy program, I got a few questions of like, hey, I want to get stronger. So should I not do this program? Like, no, you'll get strong too. Like if it's a hypertrophy program and you are doing it consistently, you're going to get stronger too, because you're not going to be laying down new muscle tissue, hypertrophy, and then not gaining strength with it. So I think people sometimes feel like they have to do a strength program and they have to do a hypertrophy program. And like the fact of the matter is you're probably going to gain muscle with a strength program and you're probably going to gain size. Wait, hold on. Gain size with the strength program. And do you know what I'm trying to say?
Muscle with a powerlifting program.
Muscle with a powerlifting program. Thank you. Yes. I'm like, I keep saying this backwards. Like there's going to be overlap in that capacity. So, but there might be a difference in exercise selection and rep schemes and rest periods.
That's a really good point to bring up, and I'll finish up, and this is real quick. But a lot of people will think, oh, if I'm just in that 12 to 15, 8 to 15 range, like that's what I need to be in to build muscle. And that's where you forget about intensity. So it's, am I getting stronger? If you're not getting stronger during a focus on building muscle, you're not building muscle. It's just not, it's very, very unlikely that's happening because you're not in the correct range. So that's one more aspect to kind of reflect on, is it's not just the rep range. It does go back to intensity.
All right, next question is from Victoria. She said, I want to run a half marathon in 6 months. Good time frame to start thinking about it. But I need to lose 20 pounds from pregnancy weight gain. I'm 14 months postpartum right now. Do I focus on losing weight first for a couple months and then train, or do I just start training? This, I think, is a common thought that for some reason, a lot of people think you have to, like, fat loss has to be a prerequisite to insert whatever kind of
to
training
be
you
fit,
want
to
do
run,
here.
to gain muscle. Yeah.
Yes. And it's just not true. You can do both at the same time. And that's what I would recommend, because, you know, focusing on implementing and increasing your running volume is only going to help with that. It's not going to be our top, not priority. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not going to be the most important thing when it comes to fat loss. Like, nutrition plays the biggest role in fat loss. But it's kind of like, you have to be careful, because when you're increasing your running volume, you have a performance goal, right? Like, your performance goal is the half marathon. That can sometimes not really mesh well with a fat loss goal too. So I think there's a lot of nuance, and it depends to my answer here. And it depends on what else does your life look like? What does your nutrition look like? Like, what has it looked like over the last 14 months that I would want to know before giving you like a definitive answer. But just something to keep in mind, you don't have to lose all the weight before you do the half, but you also may not experience like the best outcome with fat loss while training for the half, because you want to train fueled. You want to make sure you're fueling those longer runs well too, if you want to perform well.
And fueling for recovery.
So there's a lot of things to think about, but it doesn't necessarily have to be one first, then the other.
And as you ramp up volume throughout those 6 months, your hunger might increase as well, which can also kind of be counterintuitive for fat loss. So, I completely agree with Alessandra in that. Absolutely, like, start running. I wouldn't be in the headspace of like, I need to lose the weight in order to run. Yes. Or I need to lose the weight in order to train, or I need to lose the weight in order to gain strength or be fit. Multiple things can happen simultaneously. And you'll likely lose a little bit of weight running is my guess. And you'll probably see some body recomp there, but I also wouldn't get entirely too caught up in like the 20 pounds piece. Like, maybe you do lose 5 or 10 pounds and then things stall out, but like, you're running great, you're performing well, you're getting faster every week, you're running more distances, you're recovering well. Like, those are huge, huge wins. So I just wouldn't want someone to get too caught up in like an arbitrary number in their weight loss pursuits, because you are 14 months postpartum. I'm assuming this is maybe with your first baby. And you don't know what your body would look like 20 pounds less. I think a lot of women assume like, oh, you know, maybe 20 pounds is like whatever your pre-pregnancy weight was, or you just think you know what you will look like 20 pounds from now. And a lot of times, I remember this when I was postpartum with my first baby. Alessandra, you may have had similar experiences, where I got back to pre-pregnancy weight, you know, in however many months, I don't know. And I remember thinking, my body does not look at this same weight how it looked pre-babies. Like, your body just looks different even at the same weight. And so I would just urge any bit of like caution when we have an arbitrary number goal, because I think we have an expectation of what we think will look like at that number, or we think we'll be happy at that number. And like, we are all for weight loss in specific seasons and such. But I would just remind you that if you did magically hit 20 pounds of weight loss, it doesn't mean that you're going to instantly love what you see in the mirror or instantly be happy with your physique or instantly feel ready to tackle on a new goal because you hit that 20-pound mark.
Now, a great way to go about that would be focus on prioritizing your whole food nutrient dense options. So clean up the diet, build in your workout program as far as what the running is going to look like, or maybe you just focus on the resistance training. So, optimizing lower body strength, that'll still help with your performance. And then your form of cardio for this time being, if it's not specifically training for that half marathon, would be running. So you're still going to build some of that cardiovascular base. Even if you're not in a deficit, I guarantee you're still going to see body composition improvements just by cleaning up your diet, getting at least a couple weight training sessions in, and then a few days of cardio. So you're going to move in the right direction across the board by focusing on those simple staples.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up strength training because that's something still so many people, runners especially, just are not doing. And I find that those who start doing it, you're going to progress your run so much faster being strong, and especially being postpartum. Like, you really want to establish that strength base first if you want to mitigate any symptoms or things that happen when you do start running. So the other aspect of this question, she said, do I focus on losing weight first for a couple months, then train for this half? I wouldn't advise that either, because 6 months is like really probably the minimum for being postpartum that I would recommend you train for the half. You don't want to rush your half training because then you risk not being prepared for it and just feeling really crappy for it. So I would definitely focus on starting preparing for that now rather than trying to lose all the body fat in 2 months and then cram in 4 months of half training. Like, that's just probably not enough time. So yeah.
Random. I'm calling it so you guys are aware now. Random side thought, side tangent. We're all on the same page now. I'm going to jump in with something weird. We've been talking about team retreats and getaways. We should look up a Spartan or a Tough Mudder and get that on the calendar and have that be one of our getaways.
We have to make sure nobody's pregnant for that.
We'll just say after, January, stop getting pregnant for 1 year, and then you guys can pick it back up in 27.
I mean, I'm done getting pregnant. I thought you guys were too, but someone broke the
Didn't
back.
we all? Didn't we all?
After this one, we are done. That would be super fun, though. I think a team building, something like that would be.
Oh yeah.
Would be super.
So it's just like a hike. I know, Joelle, you're not big
it.
on the races. We don't have to run it. It's just fun to do the hike and do the obstacles.
I would like the obstacle course side of things, not as
it's
much
not like
the
a race.
distance side of things.
It's
I'm
a
not
lot
the distance guy
different
either.
than running a race.
I don't know the
broken
difference
up
between
nicely.
like a Spartan race and like a Tough Mudder, though. I don't know.
There's
how
So
one,
the
really.
Spartan actually acquired Tough Mudder. I was wondering,
Oh.
we were doing them a little more frequently. Me and you never ended up doing one, did you?
I was pregnant, or I just had
So
a baby.
there was like it was like a quarter of the events last year. I'm like, what happened? And Spartan actually acquired Tough Mudder. Traditionally, Tough Mudder is more camaraderie. So like you'll have random people just stop at an obstacle. You help a bunch of people through it. And then those people will then help the next round. So it's not like you can compete. You can go for time. And they have world's toughest Mudder where it's a 24-hour race and it does get serious. But for the most part, Tough Mudder is like, let's go do this hard thing together. And it's about building a team.
That's
and then
so
Spartan.
Josh's alley.
Oh, I love it.
I'm like, see you suckers.
Joelle's
Have
out.
fun getting up that wall yourself. Bye.
Pushing them back. Get down there. I'm out of here.
Says
Stepping
the
on top
shortest
of them, trying
girl.
to get over
Yeah,
there.
please help me up now. You stay down there. Whereas Spartan is traditionally the competition aspect. So it is more time. It's a race. So those are kind of similar events. Joelle's down for this Spartan now.
We would need Clary to video
Oh my
that
gosh,
whole
Oh, yeah.
thing.
We would definitely have to have him film some media for it. It'd be so
Oh
fun.
For
gosh,
sure.
that'd be hilarious. All right, we
I'm
have
going to throw that
one
in the
more.
group chat right now before I forget.
We have one more question here from our thread, and it's from Sarah. She said she currently follows Build. She has the 4 lifts per week down, no problem. Good job. But I'm struggling to stay consistent with getting cardio in. I lift at 5 a.m. before work, and ideally I'd love to do cardio after, but my schedule doesn't always pan out to allow it. Would it be more optimal to switch to the Move program and strength train 3 times per week, because Move is 3 full body days, and then I can program in the cardio on the days I'm not lifting? So for example, she wrote lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then do cardio Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I think that's a great idea if you're somebody who's wanting to add in more cardio, but you're finding time is really the barrier for you. It's totally cool to scale back one lift day per week. You're still going to see great progress 3 days per week.
Yeah.
And then you're going to notice a huge impact that cardio has doing it randomly, it sounds like right now, to doing it consistently 3 days per week. I think that's a great protocol to strive for. What do you
I would
think?
say it's at least worth trying. This was, I could have written this question myself.
Yeah, didn't you
we
wanted to do something
Yeah,
like
we
this,
talked
right?
about this a few weeks ago. And I did try it. I did it for a few weeks. I dropped down to 3 lifts. I added more cardio, and I did really like having the additional cardio sessions. But I found myself really missing that 4th lift. And so I went back to my 4 lifts, and I still try to get cardio in on my non-strength training days. I'm the same way. I don't want to double up. I don't want to end up having to do like a strength session at 5 a.m. and then still have to do a cardio session later in the day. So I try to do those cardio sessions on my non-lifting days, if and when I can. So that definitely resonates. I think either way is a great strategy. I would say if you're curious about this and you're wanting to add in more cardio, then try that. Try dropping to 3 lifts, adding in those extra cardio days. And honestly, once you get into a good routine with that, you might find that it's easier to add back in a 4th lift if you want to, now that you've established that new routine with your cardio.
You could also just stack a hit session if time is a limiting factor, like end with 5 sprints, whether it's outside, on a treadmill, on a bike, on an elliptical, wherever it is that you're doing it. And that doesn't have to be every cardio session, but if you're like, all right, Mondays are always crammed, can I get 12 minutes of intervals in just to make it a habit?
Yeah. If you're pressed on time, focusing on the more intense cardio options, more vigorous cardio is obviously something you do in less time compared to like running 10 miles. So if you're time restricted, a more intense cardio protocol a couple times per week is going to benefit you drastically. So there's always options. And I think the moral of the story is don't be afraid to experiment. Like you can always try things. And if it doesn't work, you can just go back to what you were doing before, and that's fine. So, yeah, I think that's all of our questions for the day.
We're going to throw in the bonus in place of this or that. Dream vacation. Joelle.
I'm not a good person to ask that question.
Too bad. You're on the spot. Dream vacation. What is it on the beach? Is it in the mountains? How long are you gone? What are you doing?
This is not a good question for me to be on the spot on. I need to think about this.
I'll go first. What do you think? Africa, climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and then fly down and do a safari relaxation week after you're done climbing Mount Kilimanjaro.
My parents did Africa over the summer. They said it was the best trip they've ever had. They're like, what a once in a lifetime trip that now cannot be once in a lifetime because we have to go back. It was the most incredible trip, and they are very well traveled. Most incredible trip. They can send you their whole itinerary. I'll get you all the details. But
Was it like the
loved
incredible wildlife, straight safaris, or did they do anything at resorts, or what was it?
They did a lot of safari stuff. They stayed a bunch of different places. I have a copy of their itinerary. I'll send it to you. But they did safaris. They were just like, the wildlife is insane. And when you're staying in your like hotel or wherever they're staying, your camp or whatever, you're literally like sometimes in basically a tent, and like you peek outside your tent and like there's just an elephant chilling there, and like they're just right there, and there's monkeys hanging out on your porch, and you're just like, oh, look at that. So
Kind of like Connecticut.
just bringing it full circle with the guy in the shed. Yeah, they said it was an absolutely like incredible trip, best trip they've ever done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my
I'll send you the
dream.
details.
I'm a little torn because one of mine is one we already did, but if you guys have heard, like back in the midst of my struggles, our honeymoon was Maui, and I was just ready to go home the entire trip because of how shitty that I felt. So I kind of want to redo that one. Like there's a ton of things you can do. The road to Hana, there's a bunch of little hikes you just pull over. You go find a waterfall or a private beach. Like it's the most beautiful beaches I've ever seen, and there's nobody on them because you got to go hike. You got to pull off a dirt road and go hike a mile to get to them. So that would be one to redo. But as far as
With
fresh,
or without the children?
with the kids, I think they would absolutely love that.
I agree.
Especially if they're old enough to like snorkel. That would be, you're just swimming with turtles and
wait a good
fish and stick in your face
years.
under the
You'll
water.
be waiting a few years. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But I
Maybe
think
the
right now,
listener's not ready to snorkel yet.
hold them up. Right now, it's the Europe hop. I want to get to Italy. I want to do Amalfi Coast. I want to get to the mountains, jump to Sweden, Greece. I'm huge on Greek mythology, so hopping over there and checking out the temples. Maybe some hills of Ireland on the way back. I think that's probably where we land from Connecticut. So that's mine right now. I've been trying to do these Italian lessons for the last couple of years, and so.
I will say for me, and maybe it's just because of the season of life that we're in, with two very young children, when it comes to travel, the travel time is a huge limiting factor for me. Like, I would love to do Hawaii. I don't want to sit on a plane that long.
Well, you got, hang on. Take out the negatives. Like, if you could, ideal scenario,
Teleport? If I could teleport there?
What's your ideal? Yes, that's what we're going for here.
Yeah, I really could go beaches or mountains. Like, I find so much peace in both of those. Like, being around beaches and being in that environment, like the stillness and the ocean, like that's very, very calming for me. I also find that same calming state with being in the mountains. And for a few years pre-COVID, I would go on a horseback riding trip in Colorado.
Say, didn't you do like a horse thing or something?
So I do a horseback riding trip at a ranch out in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, super north, like by Wyoming. And I like every time I took that trip, I was like, I belong here. I belong on a horse. I belong in the mountains. Like, and there's no Wi-Fi. Like, you can't get on your phone. You're just disconnected. And I'm like, alter ego Joelle is just somewhere in the mountains on a horse.
That's where you'll
with her
retire.
cowgirl boots on. Like that really, probably more so than beach. Like, that's calming for me. But like, I also don't want to sit on a beach for 12 hours and just fry. So I would say probably more mountains, horseback riding, hiking. That would be my go-to. But
There's a lot behind that with like being unplugged.
Yes. Yeah, there's a few different pieces of that. And I would love to take, like, I haven't been back post kids now. And I've never gone with Brant. I've gone with a friend. I've gone with my dad. I grew up horseback riding. And so that's something that's like very nostalgic for me and like brings me a lot of peace. But now I haven't been back on a horse or like riding or anything like that since post kids. But I would love to go back and like bring the girls and like see Sloan on a horse.
I was going to say Sloan on a horse.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And they like that specific ranch, that it's Cherokee Park Ranch in Colorado. If anyone wants to look it up, absolutely incredible. And they have like a kids camp too. So you can kind of go ride with the adults and the kids can go like ride in kids camp and they like ride ponies and do arts and crafts, and it's really cute. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Recharge for the soul. I think it was in one of the Ryan Holiday books. I forgot. Not Comfort Crisis, but I think it's when you're unplugged, like there's literally no service or whatever. Day one, anxiety goes up. Day two is like a mixed bag, and day three, you're like, this is
No, I don't have
wonderful.
anxiety on day one. I feel
I do.
great immediately.
I do.
Like when we used to go to Vermont.
Yeah. I would say for me too, Alessandra, like you might have the habit of going to like open up your phone and you're like, oh yeah, wait, no service. Or like, oh, yep,
Yeah.
nope, no service. But I think by the end of the trip, I would get antsy, more so for me about work stuff. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I got to go check my email. Like it's
Yeah.
been a few days. Like I think at the end, I
Yeah.
would
If
start
we
to
had
get
no
really-
responsibilities, it would be great. But here we are.
Here we are. And now I feel like we can't take these trips together because someone's got to be home running the business.
What a depressing way to end the episode.
I'm just kidding. We're going to take all of these family trips and everything's going to be fine. And the businesses are a
The
well-oiled
team's got
machine and
it.
nobody needs us. It's fine.
We manage Disney. You just check in at the end of the day, and it was
Yeah,
fine.
that's true. But if there's no one to check in with because there's no service.
Okay, you're talking specifically that. We can do trips, and very few places in the planet don't have service.
Fine.
And they also have to be within a 3-hour flight because we can't. That was the limiting factor we just eliminated in this hypothetical scenario.
Yeah, the distance part is a limiting factor for me. I don't want to sit on a plane. I barely want to sit on a plane to California.
Yeah. Well, if you can do that, then it's a 6-hour puddle jumper to Hawaii. So you break it up with San Diego, and then you jump on to
6-hour
Hawaii.
puddle jumper. I don't think that's the right terminology.
It's not. Just making it seem a little easier. Best flight I've ever been
Nothing
on.
sounds easy about a 6-hour flight.
Hawaiian Airlines is the best flight I've
Especially
ever
with
been on.
a
But you know what?
3-year-old.
Well, no,
and
I
a
was going to say, sans
19-month-old.
kids, without children, it's great. It's like
Yeah.
a vacation in itself.
I have yet to fly without kids. And
Ever?
ever.
What do you mean? No.
Like, I've
true.
only flown with my children.
In your life.
No. Sorry.
Yeah.
Since having
no, you
kids.
just said you went to Colorado. How'd you get there? Did you walk?
She took the horse. She told you. She rode the horse to Colorado.
From New York to Colorado. Since having kids, I've never flown
Without your
them.
kids. Okay.
Yeah. But I have
we-
an event that I'm speaking at
no.
in March that I'm going to solo. And then I have an
And
event
April.
in April that I'm going to solo as of right now. So maybe I'll change my stance on traveling because right now I hate it.
Relatable.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Where can they find you?
I'm at Alessandra Skutnik.
Forgot her own name. I'm at Joelle Samantha.
At Josh Skutnik.
Everything else you need is linked in the show notes.